I once believed family meant unconditional love and support. That trust was the foundation of every relationship worth having. For 5 years, Jessica had been my rock, the woman I planned to spend forever with. Our summer wedding was going to be the start of our perfect life together. But perfection shattered the day I came home early from my business trip, excited to share my good news. I never expected to find betrayal in my own bed with my own sister. What hurt even more than their betrayal was how quickly my family rushed to forgive them both while expecting me to do the same. Before I tell you how my family tried to force me to forgive the unforgivable, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about choosing yourself when everyone else chooses betrayal. I had always been the type of guy who put family first. Growing up in a tight-knit home in suburban Boston, my parents instilled those values early. Family comes first, they would say. Blood is thicker than water. I carried those beliefs into adulthood, building my marketing career, while staying close to home, unlike many of my college friends who scattered across the country. At 32, I had everything I thought I wanted. A senior position at one of Boston's top marketing firms, a beautiful colonial house in a good neighborhood, and most importantly, Jessica, my fiancée, of 8 months. We had met at a friend's wedding 5 years earlier, and from our first conversation, something just clicked. She was smart, ambitious, and shared my values about family and building a life together. The diamond on her finger had been my grandmother's, passed down with tearful approval from my mother when I told her I had found the one. My younger sister Megan and I had always been close, despite a natural sibling rivalry. Growing up just 2 years apart meant we shared many of the same friends and experiences. We bickered like siblings do, but I always thought we had each other's backs when it mattered. When she struggled after college, bouncing between jobs and relationships, I had been there for her. I even convinced my company to give her an entry-level position in our design department, where she had been working for the past year. That particular week in March had been important for my career. I was in Chicago pitching to a major potential client, a 3-day trip that would determine whether our firm landed a 7-figure contract. Jessica had wanted to come with me, make a mini vacation of it, but last minute she said she needed to stay behind to handle some wedding vendor meetings. "I'll miss you," she had said at the airport, kissing me goodbye. "Just 3 nights. I'll keep your side of the bed warm." The Chicago meetings went better than expected. We closed the deal a day early, and I decided to fly home and surprise Jessica with the good news. We had been saving for a down payment on a vacation property, and this commission would get us there years ahead of schedule. I pictured her face lighting up when I told her maybe even getting started on looking at properties that weekend. I took an Uber from the airport, clutching a small gift bag containing a snow globe from Chicago. Jessica collected them from places we visited, and even though I hadn't had much time for sightseeing, I had ducked into a gift shop at the airport. It was just after 1 in the afternoon when I pulled up to our house. Jessica's car was in the driveway, which surprised me a little. I thought she would be at work, but maybe she was working from home. What caught my attention more was the blue Honda Civic parked down the street. It looked exactly like Megan's car, but I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was visiting a friend in the neighborhood. I used my key to open the front door quietly, planning to surprise Jessica. The house seemed unusually quiet, but I noticed 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, one with a smear of Jessica's signature red lipstick. My first thought was innocent, that maybe she had a friend over for lunch. Then I heard sounds coming from upstairs. Muffled voices, laughter, then sounds that made my heart start to race. Not with excitement, but with a cold dread that spread through my chest. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Our bedroom door was partially open, and what I saw through that crack shattered my world in an instant. My sister Megan and my fiancée Jessica were in our bed together, naked and intertwined in a way that left no question about what was happening. For several seconds I stood frozen, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. Then a floorboard creaked beneath my foot and both their heads whipped toward the door. Jessica's eyes widened in horror. Megan scrambled to cover herself with the sheet, our sheet from the bed Jessica and I shared. "Phil," Jessica gasped, panic spreading across her face. "You're not supposed to be home until tomorrow. It's not what it looks like." Megan blurted, though, it was exactly what it looked like. Phil, please. Jessica was already crying, reaching for her robe. This was a mistake. A terrible mistake. It just happened, Megan added desperately. We didn't mean for this. I said nothing. What could I possibly say? I turned around, walked down the stairs with mechanical movements, and left the house. Behind me I could hear scrambling Jessica calling my name, but I got into my waiting Uber and asked the driver to take me to the nearest hotel. I checked into a Marriott in a daze, barely registering the concerned looks from the staff as I stood silent and shell-shocked at the counter. In the anonymous hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall for what felt like hours. My phone was exploding with notifications. Texts and calls from Jessica. Please come home so we can talk. It wasn't what you think. I love you, Phil, only you. Please answer your phone. Then came a text from Megan. I'm so sorry. We never meant to hurt you. It just happened a few times when we were both vulnerable. Please call me so I can explain. A few times. So this wasn't some one-time mistake. This had been going on behind my back. My sister and my fiancé. The two people I trusted most in the world. When my parents called, I finally answered, expecting their support and outrage on my behalf. Phil, honey, we just heard from Megan. My mother said, her voice gentle, but not as angry as I expected. We know you must be hurting. People make mistakes, son, my father added. Take some time to cool off before you make any decisions. I ended the call feeling even more alone than before. Where was the outrage? The validation of my pain. It was the first inkling that my family might not be the source of support I had always assumed they would be. That night in a hotel room, 15 minutes from the home I could no longer return to, I realized I needed to take some time away from everything. I emailed my boss, explained a family emergency had come up, and requested 2 weeks of leave. Then I turned off my phone and tried to figure out what my life would look like now that everything I had believed in had been proven false. The next few weeks were a blur of practicalities and painful revelations. I moved into a furnished month-to-month apartment while Jessica continued living in our house. I couldn't bear to be in that space knowing what had happened there. When I finally agreed to meet Jessica to discuss logistics, she came armed with tears and explanations that rang hollow. She claimed it had started innocently, just girl talk, that turned into confessions, then one drunken night 6 months ago that turned physical. One night became several, became an affair that neither of them knew how to end. I still love you, Phil, she insisted, reaching for my hand across the coffee shop table. I pulled away. It had nothing to do with my feelings for you. Megan and I were just curious. It didn't mean anything. If it didn't mean anything, why risk everything that meant something? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. And how could it be meaningless if it happened repeatedly for 6 months? She had no good answer for that. Neither did Megan when I finally met with her a few days later. My sister alternated between tearful apologies and defensive justifications. You were always so busy with work, she said at one point. As if my career success somehow excused her betrayal. Jessica and I spent a lot of time together planning wedding stuff. We got close. Too close. But we both love you so much, Phil. It was becoming clear that neither of them fully grasped the magnitude of their betrayal. Even worse, my family seemed to be taking a disturbingly neutral stance. My mother called to invite me to a family meeting at their house. When I arrived, I was blindsided to find Jessica sitting in the living room alongside my parents, Megan, and my older brother, Ryan. We need to talk about this situation like adults. My father began using his mediator voice from his days as a business consultant. Mistakes happen in life. The question is how we move forward. Move forward, I echoed, disbelief washing over me. You can't be serious. Phil, my mother interjected softly. You and Jessica have a wedding planned. Deposits paid. Family flying in from across the country. Not to mention you two have a house together, Ryan added. That's complicated to unwind. I looked around the room, waiting for someone to acknowledge the absurdity of what they were suggesting. No one did. Blood is thicker than water, my mother said, reaching for Megan's hand. And Jessica is practically family already. What stunned me most was how they kept treating the situation like a minor indiscretion rather than a fundamental betrayal. Over the next few weeks, the pressure increased. Aunts and uncles called to talk sense into me. Cousins sent messages saying how excited they still were for the wedding. My grandmother asked when I was going to get over this bump in the road. When the Thanksgiving invitation came with explicit mention that Jessica and Megan would be attending, I declined. I spent the holiday alone in my apartment with takeout and football, ignoring the barrage of guilt-tripping texts. "You're tearing this family apart by holding a grudge," my mother wrote. "Forgiveness is part of being a man for my father. The turkey is dry, but the company would be better with you here from Ryan." The only person who seemed to understand was my coworker, Alex. We had always been friendly, but during this time he became a true friend. He had experienced his own family betrayal years before, and recognized the manipulation tactics my family was employing. They're more concerned with maintaining the appearance of a happy family than with your actual happiness, he observed over beers one night. That's not love. That's control. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Winters, who helped me understand the dynamics at play. She validated my feelings when everyone else was dismissing them. "What you're experiencing is a secondary trauma," she explained. "First, the betrayal by your fiancé and sister. Then the betrayal by your family, who should be supporting you, but are instead pressuring you to sweep it under the rug." As the weeks passed and Christmas approached, I threw myself into work and rebuilding some semblance of a life. I worked out daily, reconnected with friends I had neglected, and even contemplated looking for positions in other cities. The pressure from my family intensified as December progressed. The manipulative messages reached a crescendo when my mother called in tears. "Please come for Christmas, Phil. Just for dinner. It would mean so much to have everyone together. I promise there won't be any ambushes or pressure. I just want my son at Christmas dinner." Against my better judgment and the warnings from both Alex and Dr. Winters, I agreed. Christmas Day arrived cold and clear. I purchased modest gifts for everyone, not wanting to make a statement through either extravagance or pettiness. The drive to my parents' suburban home felt longer than the 20 minutes it actually took. My father answered the door with a hearty, "There's my boy," as if the past months of tension had never happened. Inside, the house smelled of pine and cinnamon, decorated as elaborately as always. My brother Ryan, his wife Laura, and their kids were already there, creating a buffer of normal family interaction. For the first hour, everything seemed surprisingly normal. We exchanged gifts, caught up on Ryan's children's school achievements, and maintained a careful avoidance of any reference to Jessica or Megan. I began to think that perhaps my mother had been honest about wanting a peaceful family gathering. Megan arrived just before dinner was to be served, giving me a tentative smile that I acknowledged with a slight nod. The tension in the room increased, but was still manageable. We took our seats around the dining table, laden with my mother's traditional Christmas feast. Halfway through dinner, as my father was carving more turkey, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," my mother said, with a strange lilt to her voice that immediately set off warning bells. The moment Jessica walked into the dining room, I knew I had been set up. She was wearing the emerald green dress. I had always loved hair styled exactly as it had been on our first date. "Hello, Phil," she said softly. "Merry Christmas." I looked around the table at my family's faces, seeing not surprise but anticipation. This had been planned. The whole peaceful dinner had been the setup for this ambush. "What is this?" I asked, my voice tight. "It's Christmas," my father said firmly. "A time for forgiveness and new beginnings." What followed was clearly orchestrated. My grandmother started by mentioning how beautiful her mother's engagement ring still looked on Jessica's finger. I always hoped it would stay in the family. My father, ever the businessman, had actually prepared a small presentation about the emotional and financial costs of canceled weddings and divided families. "You've already paid 50% deposits on the venue, catering, and band," he noted. "That's over $15,000, Phil. Down the drain because of pride." My mother reached across the table for my hand. "We just want our family whole again, sweetheart. Everyone makes mistakes." Megan had clearly rehearsed her speech. "I've been in therapy, Phil. I understand now what led me to make such a terrible mistake. I was jealous of your happiness, your stability. I've always competed with you. And this was the ultimate way, too. I know it's no excuse. But I'm getting help now, and I miss my brother." Then came Jessica's dramatic moment. She pulled out a handwritten letter and a stack of photos from our relationship. "I've loved you since the moment we met," she began reading. "These past months without you have shown me what a terrible mistake I made. There's no one in this world for me but you, Phil." The room fell silent when she finished, all eyes on me. I could feel the weight of their expectation, the unspoken demand that I now complete their narrative by offering forgiveness and reconciliation. For a moment, I said nothing. I looked at each face around the table, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, who instead had orchestrated this manipulation. "Let me make sure I understand," I finally said, my voice calm, despite the storm inside me. "You invited me to Christmas dinner under false pretenses. You planned this ambush without my knowledge or consent. And you honestly expect me to just forgive and forget that my sister and my fiancé carried on an affair behind my back for half a year? People make mistakes, Phil." My mother repeated as if this explained everything. "Yes, they do," I agreed. "Jessica and Megan made the mistake of betraying my trust. And now all of you have made the mistake of thinking you can manipulate me into pretending it never happened." I stood up slowly. Trust once broken cannot simply be demanded back. It has to be earned. And none of you have even started that process. "You're being unreasonable," my father interrupted. "Family forgives. Forgiveness is not the issue," I replied. "I may eventually forgive them both. But that doesn't mean I have to keep them in my life. And right now I'm not sure I want any of you in my life either." The shock on their faces would have been satisfying if the whole situation hadn't been so painful. "You don't mean that," Jessica whispered. "We're your family. Family doesn't betray you. Family doesn't dismiss your pain. Family doesn't ambush you at Christmas dinner and expect you to smile through it," I said, picking up my coat. "Thank you for making my decision very clear." I walked out to my car despite their calls behind me. Instead of returning to my apartment, I drove straight to Alex's cabin in Vermont, where he had invited me to join him after Christmas. It was a 7-hour drive through the night, but with each mile my resolve strengthened. By morning I had made my decision. It was time to completely restart my life away from the toxic family that had shown their true colors. 6 months later, I was settled in Denver, Colorado. The mountains reminded me of those peaceful days at Alex's cabin, where I had made my life-changing decision. I had secured a position with a boutique marketing firm that valued work-life balance, bought a small but comfortable condo, and was slowly building new routines. My family's attempts to contact me continued through various channels. Emails, social media messages, even packages sent to my new address, which I had stupidly shared with a cousin I thought I could trust. I maintained my no-contact stance. The first few months had been the hardest, fighting against years of conditioning that family comes first. But Dr. Winters had connected me with a therapist in Denver who helped me work through the guilt and doubt. Boundaries are not punishment, Dr. Landon would remind me. They're protection. 9 months after the Christmas disaster, I ran into Jessica's cousin Maya at an industry conference. She approached me with caution. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to," she said. "But I thought you should know they're telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown, that you were unstable, and imagined things were worse than they were." For a brief moment, doubt crept in. Had I overreacted? Was I the villain in their story? But then I remembered the calculated ambush, the dismissal of my feelings, the expectation that I should just get over a profound betrayal because it was inconvenient for them. "Thank you for telling me," I said to Maya. "It just confirms I made the right decision." By the 1-year mark, I had established a new life that was genuinely mine. My work was thriving. I had a small circle of genuine friends, and I had even started rock climbing, something I had always wanted to try, but Jessica had dismissed as too dangerous. It was at a local climbing gym that I met Allison, a graphic designer with an infectious laugh and refreshing directness. Our friendship developed naturally over shared belaying sessions and post-climb beers. Unlike my relationship with Jessica, which had always been partly about pleasing my family, my connection with Allison was entirely our own. "I've never met your family," she observed one evening 6 months into our relationship. "Is that a red flag I should worry about?" I told her the whole story then. She listened, without interruption, her expression thoughtful. "You know what stands out to me," she said when I finished. "Not what they did, but that you had the courage to walk away. Do you know how rare that is? Most people stay trapped in toxic relationships forever because they're too afraid to start over. During therapy, I had my biggest breakthrough yet. I always thought self-worth came from being a good son-brother partner, as defined by others, I told Dr. Landon. But now I realize it comes from being true to yourself first. At the 2-year mark, my family made one final concentrated effort to re-establish contact. They sent a family friend, my father's college roommate Alan, to my office. "They're hurting, Phil," he said over coffee. "Your mother cries on your birthday. Your father seems 10 years older." "I'm sorry they're in pain," I replied sincerely. "But I didn't cause it. Their choices did." I sent back with Alan a brief, handwritten note. "I have forgiven you all for the pain you caused. That is my gift to myself, not to you. But forgiveness doesn't mean restoration of relationship. I wish you well, but my life is elsewhere now." 3 years after walking out of that Christmas dinner, my new life was fully established. My relationship with Allison had deepened into something I never knew was possible, built on mutual respect and genuine acceptance. My career had flourished, without the pressure to stay near family. I had built a chosen family through friendships that valued authenticity over appearance. Sometimes I still felt twinges of sadness for what I had lost, or rather for what I had thought I had, but never really did. A family that would stand by me no matter what. A sister I could trust. A love that was faithful. But what I gained was far more valuable: a life built on truth rather than obligation. Relationships based on genuine care rather than convenience. And the knowledge that I was strong enough to walk away from people who didn't respect my boundaries, even when those people were family. I came to understand that family isn't defined by genetics, but by actions. The people who show up for you, who respect your feelings, who love you without conditions, those are your real family, whether you share DNA or not. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between your well-being and family expectations? Share your story in the comments below. If my journey to rebuilding my life resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength after betrayal. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to walk away from toxic relationships, even family ones. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the greatest act of self-love is closing a door so better ones can open.